Everyone, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Just a quick procedural item. Denver Supinger, our board, our committee secretary, is ill, so I'm going to be running the minutes here. So if you hear some tapping in the background from my keyboard, apologies. But I'm going to try to keep this thing running. Welcome to members of the community who are here tonight. Thank you for joining us. First things first are some preliminary motions. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay, everyone should be able to see my screen. Okay, to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this committee needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. First, because each member of the committee is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each committee member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. Okay, I'm going to conduct a roll call. And just for the purposes of minute keeping, I'm going to be dropping in edits into a version of the old minutes. So if you see typos or something like that, don't be alarmed. Lisa Sales. Okay, circle back to Lisa. Jimmy Bierman. I don't see Jimmy on the list. I don't see Lisa either. Okay, we'll come back to them. Richard Chu.
Hi, this is Richard. I'm in Reston, and I'm representing Hunter Mill.
Thank you. Brian Garner.
This is Brian Garner, and I am representing Lee District.
Just for the purposes, don't forget to...
Located in Lee District at my home.
Okay, great, thank you. Jerry Highland. Jerry and Lisa usually join together, so we'll come back to them. Denver is absent. Saif Rahman.
Good evening. It's Saif Rahman, Arab American representative, calling in from Manassas, Virginia.
Thank you, Saif. So I just got a message from Lisa saying that they are both present. They're joining.
Jerry, we just got permission for sound. Thank you, Nat. Jerry Highland and Lisa Sales are present from Mount Vernon District.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, George Becerra.
George Becerra in Burke, Virginia.
Thank you. Janae Lindler.
I'm here and I'm in Fairfax, Virginia, representing Springfield District.
Thank you. Bowie.
Bill Bowie, participating from my residence in the Hunter Mill District.
Sam Walker.
Sam Walker, I'm here representing Sully District, and that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Nat, Lisa's saying that she and Jerry don't have video permission. I don't know if that's a separate.
No, they're both listed as under their account. They do have they're presenters, so they should be able to access
the sound released, but not the video. So we can talk, but you don't need to see our mugs anyhow. So I just wanted to let you know there are problems with Teams.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize for that, but once you're like, I'm not sure if it's the system or how whatever you platform or software you joined with, but yeah, I don't control that since you're now listed as a presenter.
Lisa, I can try to walk you through some steps and, later. I want to keep things moving though. Alice Wang.
Yep, Alice here calling in from Falls Church, Virginia.
Welcome back, Alice. Candy Butler.
Candy here, Annandale, and I'm representing the League of Women Voters.
Thank you. Prashant Rajan.
Prashant Rajan, President, representing Braddock District, calling from my home in Fairfax.
Thank you. Coretta Perkins.
Hi, Coretta Perkins here, representative from the African American community, and I'm in my home in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Tim Thompson.
Tim Thompson calling in from my home in Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you, Tim. Scott Price.
Scott Price down in Richmond, Virginia, representing the Nova Chamber.
Thank you, Scott. Ray Moran.
Ray Moran, representing the Hispanic community from Fairfax.
Thanks, Ray. Ray, I realize that I haven't really asked for you to introduce yourself to the group. Would you mind doing that now, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, my full name is Rafael. I go by Ray, and I pronounce my last name Marin, but Marin is okay. In California, they call me Rafael Marin, so anything in between is good. I'm a long-term Fairfax County resident here, probably the better part of 5 decades, but the first 3 of those I was in the Foreign Service, working at embassies and consulates in North America, Central America, Western Europe, South Asia, and a few assignments here in the U.S. After I retired from the State Department, I joined a small academic center at the George Washington University, developing programs for participants from Latin American countries. And so now I'm retired again and happy to be here with this group. So thank you, and I look forward to meeting all of you in the flesh at some point in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray, and apologies for mispronouncing your last name. I should know better. Okay, I did just get a message from Jimmy. He said he's actually at another Fairfax County meeting, so he'll join shortly. A little bit on protocol for tonight. Let's see, before I get ahead of myself. Sorry, I'll save that for a moment. Okay. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chairman Walker so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that the Redistricting Advisory Committee certify for the record that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this committee.
Seconded.
Do I get a motion? Do I get a
Now you call for discussion.
Sorry. Yes. Is there a discussion? Thank you. Okay. Any nays?
That's for the ayes first.
Any ayes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, and there was no discussion. Any against? Say nay. Okay, it has been passed. Approved and passed.
And I'm going to assume there were no abstentions unless anybody typed up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Next. Okay. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the committee certify that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the committee to physically assemble and unsafe for applicants, staff, and the public to physically attend any such meeting in person, and that as such, an in-person meeting cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the committee conduct this meeting electronically through Microsoft Teams and that the public may access this meeting by joining it through the provided link. It is so moved.
Second.
Second from Bill Bowie. Okay. And any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Thank you. Finally, I move that the committee certify that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda provide for the committee's continuity of operation or the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Second.
I saw Scott Price on that. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay. So now approval of the agenda. Everyone should be able to see. If you can't see it, please let me know.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. There's second.
Second, Ray Marin.
Second from Ray Marin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Oh, sorry, I messed that up. That was and going for your patience on this. Okay, so due to the illness I mentioned, we weren't able to get the minutes from last meeting. Next meeting, we're just going to have to approve 2 sets of minutes. So apologies for that. Moving into the public comment period, we're going to have, what did we put here, 25 minutes of public comments. I see there are plenty of folks here. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to address this very important topic. If you are joining with Microsoft Teams, if you look at, there's a little symbol of a face with a hand in front of it. If you hover your mouse over that, there's a little hand icon, and if you click that, that raises your hand and I will call on you to speak. If you're joining by phone, you need to, let's see, it's hit *5 to raise your hand, and you hit *6 to unmute yourself. But I'll call on you before you unmute yourself so that we can make sure that your microphone is ready. So I see one hand raised already. Let's see. Tammy Manarino, please, thank you for joining us, and you have 2 minutes. And you need to unmute yourself, Tammy. So Tammy, I think you're hitting the wrong buttons here because you're now requesting control, and I'm gonna deny that. But if you'd like to unmute yourself, feel free. Okay. Demi, I think you might be having some technical problems. If you want to shoot an email to redistricting@fairfaxcounty.gov. Did I get that right, Nat?
Yeah, that's correct.
So redistricting@fairfaxcounty.gov. We'll try to get you squared away. Are there any other members of the public that have joined tonight that would like to offer public comment? Okay, I see another hand raised. There we go. Vanita Underwood, welcome. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We can't hear you, Vanita.
So for anyone in the wishing to make public comment, when you first join the Teams meeting, your mic and your camera are locked. When you are called upon, I am allowing you permission to unlock your mic at that point. So again, once you raise your hand and you're called upon, you will have permission to unmute yourself. In the upper right, you'll see a little microphone. You can just click that to unmute yourself and speak. So right now it is Vanita Underwood. You do have the ability to unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, Vanita, we're going to move on here. I don't think that we can't hear you. So moving next to Matt Bell. Welcome. Thanks for joining us again, Matt. Please unmute yourself.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening. My name is Matt Bell, and I'm a resident and community leader here in Mount Vernon. First off, I want to thank former Mount Vernon Supervisor Jerry Highland and the Mount Vernon Mason Redistricting Subcommittee for their leadership and for listening to the Mount Vernon community. I wanted to urge all members of this committee to vote in favor of removing the Mount Vernon district renaming from the current process. I wanted to thank everyone for listening to the community. Multiple folks mentioned numerous issues that were very valid in the renaming, mostly just the lack of community input and transparency in this process. Thank you, Paul, for your leadership, and hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Dee Lynch. Welcome. You have 2 minutes. Please unmute yourself when you're ready.
Good evening to the committee. My name is Dayton Lynch. I started unsully.org a couple of years back with an effort to have the Sully district renamed, realizing that it's history. The Sully Historic Site is still in place, but feeling as if our political districts, a place where people participate in free elections, should not be named after a plantation by a site of human trafficking, if we are to bring it into modern terms, slave business. And it was very important for me to get to this kind of point here where there's a legitimate discussion about offering names of districts to be changed. Too often we talk about history and speak about history as if we don't make it every single day. And if the Board of Supervisors decides to change the name of any political district or precinct, the board's action will be creating a new chapter in Fairfax County's history. So it'll be part of that stream of life, and that connects us to all the history in the past, and it will, in my view, reflect our present day values, the things we value intrinsically, the things we like about our community now, and it will tell the future and express to the future what Fairfax County believed about itself in the present. So I appreciate the work you've done on the redistricting side and now on the renaming side to the committee, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, there's a phone number ending in 39. Need to hit *6 to unmute yourself. That's *6. There we go. I think we can hear you now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Vanita Underwood. My apologies for the earlier technical difficulties. Thank you so much for having me and for allowing the public to take part in this discussion. I want to be clear and say that it's really important to be able to look at our history and learn from that history and not make the same mistakes again. That said, I don't necessarily agree with that all of the names of anybody who has ever done wrong in the past need to be changed across our entire community. I think it's not okay to support the items that are bad, such as slavery. I completely agree with that aspect. However, what about leaving the reminders there for some degree that if we do hear a name and we think about history, that we're remembering the bad and the good so that we don't erase the bad and forget that it ever happened, so that we don't redo those mistakes ever again. Not for slavery, not for the Confederacy, not for any of that, but I don't necessarily believe that the time we're spending here in these meetings trying to rename to make everything vanity correct could be spent much better working on other community items that could help the humans that live here. So that's my 2 cents. Hopefully, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Okay, Tammy Manarino, we see you back in the queue. See if we can get your mic working this time. Go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready. Still can't hear you, Tammy.
Tammy, I noticed that you're logged in as a guest twice. I have given you permission to use your mic on each device you're logged in on. So yeah, just make sure whichever one you're unmuting yourself on, that's the one that you're able to speak through.
Okay. Apologies, Tammy. We're going to have to move on in the interest of time. If you can send an email over, then maybe, or if you want to join with the call-in in the next few minutes, maybe we can get you into the public comment period here. We're going to move on from now. Okay. So next is just a very brief full committee discussion to outline a couple of items before we jump into the breakout rooms. First thing is thank you to everyone last week for your work. I hope you had some time to research and look over the documents that have been circulating around. I did receive a few write-ups, one from the Mason and Mount Vernon group, and then one from the let's see, this was from, I think it was from Lee and Sully. Yep, Lee and Sully. So those are available to the public. I will be looking at them along with everyone else in real time here. I think we're going to reserve some time to discuss them collectively at 7:40 or maybe a little sooner. So in a moment, we're going to jump into our breakout rooms. A quick note about that for members of the public, because this is a public meeting, the work groups, the breakout rooms here, function exactly as the meeting does right now, which means please, assign yourself, request to join a subgroup that fits your interests, but it is the RAC members, the appointed members of the committee that are leading the discussion, and I ask that you please respect their leadership and indicate by raising your hand in those subgroups when you would like to address the committee, but because this is essentially an internal meeting, just like it was in person, you need to please ask permission to join the conversation, which I'm sure won't be a problem. Informally, I'm just going to assign those that edited the documents as the leaders of the group. So Jimmy and Safe for the Mason Mount Vernon group will be leading the discussion there. And then Brian Garner will be leading the Lee and Sully group. A quick note for those members of the public that weren't here last week, we do have a third subgroup for Springfield, which is being evaluated under the geography criteria. That group didn't have a robust discussion last week because the representative wasn't able to join. So today is the kind of the kickoff of that group. I'm going to be, Janae, if that's all right, since you're the Springfield rep, I'm going to assign you leadership in that work group. And so that's that. Does anyone from the committee have any questions before we start moving into our subgroups? Oh, sorry, Jimmy. Yeah, go ahead.
Paul, first thing, I apologize to the committee and I apologize to the public for being late this evening. I had a police civilian review panel meeting run long, so I apologize that I didn't get here until 6:15. At last week's meeting, it quickly became apparent, as you can see in our meeting materials and the drafted presentation for the Mount Vernon and Mason group, that there is no appetite whatsoever on the part of the public or the members of the subgroup to change the names of Mount Vernon or Mason. We simply our group is not going to recommend it. Perhaps there is dissenting voices among the rest of the RAC that disagree with me, but I don't believe that to be so. And I think while what I drafted is obviously subject to significant editorial control and changes by our subcommittee and by ultimately the group as a whole, I think it would be of better use right now, since we have decided as a subcommittee that we are not going to recommend that the full committee recommend any changes to Mount Vernon and Mason, that we discuss that now, which would also allow our committee to break up into the other two groups, which did not come to such a quick conclusion. I recognize that's not on the agenda. I admit that I was late and so therefore could not make a motion to change the agenda. But I would suggest that it would be a better use of our time to at least go over quickly and briefly why our subcommittee perhaps does not even need to meet again with the purpose of whether or not we're going to recommend changes to those names.
Yeah, so Jimmy, thanks for rushing over, back-to-back meetings. It's not easy. So that number 2 on the agenda and the full committee discussion, we do, it's on the agenda to do that.
Okay.
I'm perfectly happy. I think that would be great to essentially end one subgroup and then merge. So we can't take any, I was thinking about this today, because we're virtual, we can't take any votes on content issues. We can do preference polls, as everyone remembers. We did one of those on the original RAC. I think if we took a preference, Jimmy, I mean, let me know if this is kind of hitting where you want. We could take a preference poll that essentially is the equivalent of a vote and lets everybody, then we'll take a formal vote on that when we meet in person to approve the report. I don't think, the only thing is, I don't think everybody in the subgroup has had an opportunity to look at what you prepared. Would you, I don't think, definitely the others probably in the group that's not yours, that's the same case. Do you want to maybe get into the subgroups for a few minutes to go over your material and to show everybody else and then come back? Or because I'm not sure we have enough time to jump in.
Mm-hmm. We haven't seen it.
I guess we have 30 minutes right now from our assigned
7
7
p.m.
Paul, I would like to do that very much. I'd like us to just go ahead and hear what they have to say. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, Jimmy, do you want to share your screen and pull up your content?
Sure. If you'll indulge with me for just 1 second while I pull up the proper document, and I got a zillion things on my screen. So just give me 1 second, but I should be able to share my screen. So slideshow. Okay, so this is my little encapsulation of our discussion on Mason and Mount Vernon from last week. So first, on January 18th, 2022, we decided to consider recommending a change to Mason or Mount Vernon. I think that language is really important. Just as a reminder, the RAC has a very limited mandate. All we can do is recommend that the Board of Supervisors that rename a district or a precinct. And given that limited mandate, we started with essentially as broad a list as possible of potential criteria for consideration. So consideration does not mean that we will recommend a name change. It just means that we think about it. George Mason, which was named after founding father George Mason, who was himself a slave owner, was to be considered. Mount Vernon, which was named after the plantation home of the first president, was also to be considered. And the consideration was due to the association of both names with the institution of slavery. Now, Mount Vernon was the home of our first president, George Washington. Mount Vernon was a working plantation. At the time of George Washington's death, about 317 people were enslaved at Mount Vernon. In his will, he decreed that 123 slaves that he owned would be freed upon the death of his wife, Martha Washington. If you actually get into it, there were some complex ownership structures, which meant that he didn't even own all of the slaves at Mount Vernon and could not free them all on his own. Mount Vernon, named after the house, is one of the original 6 townships of Fairfax County when the General Assembly divided the county in 1870. And in 1874, Mount Vernon was converted into one of the original 6 districts in the county. Mount Vernon's proximity of the house itself to Washington, D.C. and the association with George Washington played a role in deciding to place the county's capital city where the District of Columbia now sits. Obviously, George Washington's contributions to the country are too significant to list. Commander of the Continental Army, won the Revolutionary War, unanimously elected by his peers to preside as president over the Constitutional Convention in 1787, which resulted in the drafting of the Constitution. He was America's first president. As someone in our working group last week pointed out, perhaps the most important contribution to the nation is one that we don't even talk about as much, which was that he declined to run for president again after serving 2 terms. He believed that democracy required that the country move on. And I personally believe it's something we should really think about, how amazing it was at the time to think that a leader would simply step down. That was not common at the time. The Mason District was named after George Mason. That's the gentleman in the picture right here. In 1953, a court-appointed redistricting committee of Fairfax County chose to create a 7th district. Why was there a court-appointed redistricting committee? There had been petitions to say that the county had been needed to be redistricted into 7 districts, and actually a judge is the one who essentially decreed it so that we should have 7 districts. George Mason was another founding father. He wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights in 1776. I apologize for the typo there. Rights should be capitalized. And that's a precursor to the Bill of Rights. Interestingly, George Mason was one of 3 delegates to the 1787 convention who did not sign the Constitution. In his objections to this constitution of government, he wrote that there's no Declaration of Rights, and the laws of the general government being paramount, the declarations in the separate states are no security. He also wrote, there's no section preserving liberty of the press or trial by jury in civil cases, nor is there one concerning the danger of standing armies in the time of peace. So, for instance, there's no section preserving the liberty of the press, that's the First Amendment, or trial by jury in civil cases, that's the 7th Amendment. Eventually, it was fellow Virginian James Madison who had introduced the Bill of Rights along the same lines as Mason's sentiments. Records suggest, however, that George Mason owned 90 slaves at his plantation estate Gunston Hall. So the RAC subcommittee got together on January 25th, and we considered the renaming of Mount Vernon and Mason with input from the public. And the truth is there was no appetite whatsoever to rename the districts from either RAC members or members of the public. Public comments emphasized things such as the importance of George Washington to the development of the nation, the importance of Mount Vernon as a major attraction and a key landmark in the Mount Vernon community. Another thing that was brought up was the work that operators of Mount Vernon, now a World Heritage Site, have done to contextualize Mount Vernon, the good and the bad. The fact it was a working plantation that enslaved people is now part of, it is a central part, obviously, of the story of Mount Vernon, and luckily it is a part of the history that Mount Vernon itself tries to tell. And we also talked about the distinction between founding fathers and Confederate leaders, founding fathers who were clearly flawed in many ways, but who brought this nation together, versus Confederate leaders who frankly tore it apart. So we quickly dispensed with the idea of renaming Mount Vernon and Mason. I mean, it happened almost immediately. Within minutes of the start of the subcommittee meeting, we decided that there was simply no reason at this time to rename Mount Vernon or Mason. I already said that part. We did not ignore the flaws of our founding fathers, but we pointed out that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights have in the end been central to the progress of the nation. In a way, there's something kind of, maybe it's something unique about George Mason, in that he shows, here's someone who didn't sign the Constitution, but who helped produce the Bill of Rights. It shows that we are complicated and have multitudes. And we also point out the distinction between honoring Confederate leaders, which was in history at many times a deliberate and concerted attempt to whitewash the causes of the Civil War, and honoring founding fathers like Washington and Mason, which occurs in spite of rather than because of their associations with the evils of the institution of slavery. There is a long history of actually trying to venerate certain Confederate generals, Confederate leaders as heroes, for the very purpose of whitewashing what actually occurred during the Civil War, and with whitewashing reasons that the Civil War happened. So the Mason Mount Vernon subcommittee of the RAC recommends that the full committee neither recommend naming Matt Mason nor Mount Vernon. As I said, that's just a little PowerPoint that I put together. It is not definitive. It does not represent necessarily, if you spotted typos, please tell me. Like, we can change the typos. We can add information to the PowerPoint. We can add facts, but that's what I pulled together based on our subcommittee meeting last week.
Paul, this is Jerry.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, I want to congratulate you for doing a super job of putting together an excellent summary of what the position of the subcommittee was. The only thing that you missed in your entire presentation is the fact that at Mount Vernon, they memorialize the presence of slaves and their contribution to Mount Vernon for being the place that it is. And other than that, everything that you said is absolutely right on target, and I support exactly what you have put together and what you're recommending.
Thanks, Jerry. George?
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy, for the presentation. I just want to be consistent in what message I've said from the beginning is about outreach. So if we go to other subcommittees and recommendations, and I know we've had supervisors or a supervisor suggest that they'll have town halls. If my threshold is going to be the number of folks last time, then that's our threshold. Because I said it from the beginning is, how do we get to a certain threshold of folks where we have community input? I'll give you an example. I was last night at the superintendent search. The boards, they got received 0.05% responses, 9,000 or so. They're going to probably negate those type of, that survey response. So I just want to get where we have the discussion when we go to other votes, what is our threshold for community outreach? That's my only comment. I just want to be consistent throughout the conversation that we have, but I do thank you, Jimmy, for presenting what you had.
Paul, may I respond to that for just a second?
Yeah.
Look, George, I'm with you. Yes, we want community outreach. We always want more community responses. That's fine. I mean, but we also were brought together to make a decision and to make decisions and make recommendations. Look, I'm with everybody who said, for instance, that our last RAC version on redistricting did not have enough public input. But talk to folks who work for the Board of Supervisors, and they laughed at some of those comments saying, yeah, but people don't watch Board of Supervisors meetings anyway. I mean, they like the fact is you can try, you can put it out there, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. At some point, we have to start making decisions. And we could have 50 town halls. It doesn't matter. At some point, we got to make the decision. And I don't think we have any evidence right now with respect to Mount Vernon or Mason, zero, that we have a situation where the community feeling is that we should rename those districts. So I think we should just be upfront and say that and move on and focus on issues that are bigger for this committee. Frankly, again, Lee and Sully are districts where there is going to be more disagreement. So let's talk about it. Let's move on. Thank you.
I hear you, Jimmy. It's just a threshold. That's all I'm saying.
Paul, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Chair.
And George, particularly, in one day after our last meeting, with calls that I made, I had the Mount Vernon Lee Chamber of Commerce agree to send a statement, which they've done, representing 300 or so businesses in Mount Vernon and Lee. I contacted the president of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Association that represents 50 civic associations in Mount Vernon, and they passed a resolution on Wednesday opposing any change to the Mount Vernon district. I spoke with realtors, I spoke with individual civic association presidents, and in that one day experience, as Jimmy has said, I found no one, and I guess the one particularly that I want to emphasize, Queenie Cox with the Gum Springs Civic Association, and that association represents the largest Black community in Fairfax County. You recall her testimony at our public comment session at the last meeting. She could not have been stronger in her opposition to changing the name of Mount Vernon because the Gum Springs community was developed by a freed slave, West Ford, and she felt that keeping the name of Mount Vernon continued the contact that her community has with the Mount Vernon estate that she does not want severed. So I just want to indicate that in terms of input, I think that was representative of how the entire community of Mount Vernon would feel if we went out and did a survey. So I felt very comfortable that what we were proposing is supported by the people in the Mount Vernon district.
Just that not everybody is a former supervisor. Just got to call it out.
Paul, I'd like to add a comment as well. With regard to Lee District, Supervisor Lusk has been holding town hall meetings for over a year. He actually started this process, I believe, in 2020. So he's had several town halls already on this topic. So there have been, according to his office, hundreds of people who have shown up. So this is not, we're not starting from zero here with this particular process. This has been a conversation that has been going on for a couple of years. I just wanted to add that for the record.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And George and Brian, I mean, you're kind of making, well, definitely, George, you're making a methodology point right now. Like, you know, let's have some consistency, and I appreciate that. We should have that be a component of the discussion, but when we're discussing the others. So if you feel there's insufficient, you know, discussion around one of the other districts, when we get to that, like let's you know, save that for later. Right now, you know, Jimmy just laid out a pretty persuasive argument summarizing everything that was said last week. Let's focus on you know, on this opportunity now to eliminate this, you know, kind of the low-hanging fruit and move into the more challenging discussions that are likely to happen with the other districts. So we have 15 minutes, and this is just kind of open discussion for the RAC members. So jump in if you have something to say. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask for a preference canvas, if everyone remembers how those go. It's not a vote. It's just, I'm going to ask, you know, should the RAC recommend against renaming Mount Vernon and Mason districts? And you'll indicate, you know, a yes as a preference canvas. It's not your vote. If you find evidence between now and when we take our formal vote that changes your mind, you're you know, at liberty to solidify that with your final vote. But let's focus on that goal for now while we have this opportunity. So anyone else want to jump in? Okay, there's a hand. Oh, Janae, yeah, go ahead.
I agree 100% with what they're doing. And I would like to see that put aside. That's just, it's not something that we need to work with today or ever, but at least not today.
So, Janae, can you be more specific? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I think when you start going off on founding fathers, you're treading a area that a lot of people have very strong feelings about. And I think that to open up that discussion in such a way that makes them think you're going to change it will not go over very well. I recognize their faults, but we all do, but we also recognize their strengths, as was so eloquently shown to us. And then also, frankly, Mount Vernon is a kind of our gold standard of how they have worked with the enslaved. I used to work at Mount Vernon, and when people would come to Mount Vernon, they would want to know what families, how they were related, and they would be sent to me. And we hadn't done a lot of work on the enslaved, but we started doing more and more. And so it's a place of coming together where people come and they say, well, who built this? And it's not just the Washington family, the Dandridge family, the Custis family. It's now the Ford family. It's the Ponder family. It's all those people that are significantly attached to it. And I just think that it's not something that we should really look at and dismiss.
Okay, thanks, Janae.
Sure.
Any other RAC members have comments? Okay, well, at this point, just going to keep pushing us down the track. So I'm going to conduct a preference canvass right now. And the question for that preference canvass will be, should the RAC recommend against renaming Mount Vernon and Mason districts? I'm going to read that again. Should the RAC recommend against renaming Mount Vernon and Mason districts? When I call for it right now, if you say aye, you're saying this is the equivalent of a straw poll. You're saying, I don't think we should rename Mount Vernon and Mason. So with that clarification, if you are against renaming Mount Vernon and Mason for a preference campus, please say aye.
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 Okay. Are there any nays? Okay. Are there any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Let me just record that in the minutes.
Paul, I have my hand up just for one small point. If anybody has, just as we are getting ready to put together our final report, what I put together tonight was cursory. As I said, there probably were typos in it. If you have any points or facts or things that you might want to go in there, please send them to me and we can start drafting that section of the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Okay, so we're going to keep moving through the agenda. Next, we're going to be going into breakout rooms. For those who are in the Mount Vernon and Mason subgroup, I'll remind you that you actually still have Gunston precinct to make a recommendation on. I think maybe since that one's might be that one won't require so much robust discussion, you can just go into a different subgroup for tonight, and then the RAC members. Yeah, what's
Paul,
up, Jimmy?
Gunston Hall was Mason's
Yes.
home. Can we
Yes.
dispense with that right now?
I was going to leave that for offline work. Like.
Okay, sure.
One-on-one.
Sure, never mind.
Yeah, one-on-one. Janae, do you have something?
No, I was just going to say that what we've done in the other two is probably exactly what we should do with Gunston, but we can talk about it if we need to.
Yeah, that one's, I think that one can get taken care of offline. Thanks, Jerry. Janae, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to tell you something that happened several years ago when I was at Mount Vernon, which I think is important for this group to hear. Gladys Ponder used to work there. She worked there every Thursday. She was very proud of her descendancy from the Mount Vernon. And I remember one day coming in and said, you need to go so I can replace you. And I told the people there that who she was. It was like a pin drop in the room because they knew that her people had built this. And when they all left, I talked to her later and she said, I want my people to come here. We made his life possible. And I just never forgot that. I just never forgot how moving that whole event was with her and working with her. Anyway.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
She was the most delightful lady you'd ever want to meet.
Wasn't she?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I loved it when I was put on shift with her.
No way.
Okay, so Nat, I'm sorry about the mechanics here. I guess you're just going to have to ask. Do you need to ask right now, or do you ask later what subgroup they're going into?
Yeah, so I do have everyone pre-assigned, but if the Mount Vernon and Mason group is not going to exist, that I can reassign them. If you'd like, I can send everyone to their rooms and then they can jump out and let me know where they want to go. Or I can take a few minutes and everyone.
Yeah, can we assign? I'm just going to go down the list. Jerry, what new room do you want to be in? Lee Sully or Springfield?
Yeah, Lee and Sully would be fine. Lee District, Sully.
Okay.
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 That'll have to be the same for Representative Sales since they're both on the same account.
I bet Lisa's probably okay with that.
I'm fine. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
Alice?
I can join the Lee Sully one as well.
All right. George?
Springfield.
Oh, okay. You're in two groups here. Yep. Jimmy?
I'll join the Lee Sully one, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Lisa, I already have your name. Safe? Safe, you still there? Okay. I think Safe was on the phone, so Nat, if you can put me in Springfield just to try to balance things out here.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is Sam. I wasn't very successful the last time, so we're just going to hold our breath and we're going to pop out into those rooms. Is that how it works, Nate?
Yeah, you should have. It may automatically send you into the rooms, or something should pop up on your screen, prompting you to join the breakout room. For members of the public, if you wouldn't mind giving me a minute or two, I'm going to have all the committee representatives join their room, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to unmute everyone. If anyone is interested in joining a particular group, again, remember we just have two groups, Lee and Sully, and then Springfield. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, letting me know your name and which group you'd like to be assigned to, and then you will be prompted to join that particular breakout room. So yeah, if everyone is ready, I will go ahead and open the rooms here.
Nat, just 1 second. Just want to remind everyone again, so Brian is going to be leading the discussion in the Lee and Sully group. So please defer to his leadership when you would like to speak. And similarly for Janae in the Springfield group. All right, Nat, take it away.
All righty.
Everybody, I think we should all, the Springfield group came to a consensus that discussion was good for tonight, so we're all joining back together. I don't want to derail the Lee and Sully group discussion. Is Brian?
You derailed it. We're here.
Okay.
Well, I'm here, and so is Sam. So I just got thrown out of Lee Sully.
Everyone should be coming back in a second. I'm going to hand things back over to Brian so that he can continue leading there.
Okay. Well, we were just opening up to public comments, so I was looking, I think it was Gail Niddle that was about to speak when we broke.
Okay,
yes.
great.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Gail?
I was saying that I was at those meetings that we had.
Sorry, Gail,
Yes.
sorry, I don't want to interrupt it. Just give it a couple of minutes because we're moving people from the other virtual room into this one. So I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to hear you.
I think we're all here.
Well, good. Okay. Sorry, I'm not leading here. It's Brian, but Gail, go ahead. And Brian, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Would you like me to finish my comment then?
Yes, please, Gail.
Yes, I was at those meetings that we had on Lead District, and I think that the way it was worded was if we didn't call it Lead District anymore, what would you prefer? What names would you prefer? I did not come away from those meetings thinking there was a consensus. I thought there were good arguments on both sides. Certainly there was, if it was renamed, more support for Franconia. but there was also good support for keeping it Lee in honor of the Lee family, which certainly predated Robert E. Lee. So whatever the committee decides, but I don't know that there was a clear consensus.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public, please?
If anyone is interested in speaking, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, if you don't have mic permission, I'll be glad to give it to you.
It appears that we've come to the end of public comments on this topic. So I just want to circle back with the RAC members that are part of the subcommittee, just kind of gauge whether or not we have consensus in our group one way or another. I just want to open it up. I assume each of you has had a chance to read the summary. So I would be asking if we agree, one, on our methodology, particularly talking about the distinction between commemoration and then preserving our history. But then also, too, for the specific names that are listed in the summary. And that, again, those are Lee District, Sully District, Mosby, Ravensworth, Stewart, Van Dorn, Graham Greenway, Oakmar, Penderbrook, and Lee's Corner. So I open it up to the subcommittee to voice their opinion. Candy, please. I think you're muted, Candy.
Thanks for letting me know. Are we going to be providing specific rationale for each of the precinct names?
Well, to me, I think the rationale is in the paragraph above. For the it's the second paragraph of the summary, if you have that open.
Yeah, I do. I've read it, and yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so okay, so the answer is probably not. Okay, it just seems to me that we ought to try to be as specific as possible, but that's also up for group, consensus. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any others? Any other members of the subcommittee, Lee and Sully subcommittee?
This is Richard. I think it was an excellent summary, and I concur with the findings as they stand right now.
Thank you, Richard.
Hi, Brian, this is Alice. I agree as well. I like your methodology and assessment.
Thank you, Alice.
I agree as well, Brian. This is Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Bill, did you have anything?
No, I totally agree. You and I spoke earlier.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is Coretta Perkins. I am in agreement as well.
Thank you, Coretta. Okay.
And this is Candy. Having talked about the precincts and the more specifics, I agree, and I think the summary is right on point.
Thank you, Candy. Okay, so I report out to the chair then that it seems that the subcommittee on Lee and Sully has agreement, has a consensus that the summary with the rationale and the specific names addressed is our feeling that should be considered.
For the benefit of everyone, can you just this is being recorded, so Brian, can you give us the highlights, or as much or as little depth as you want to go on what that rationale is and what your recommendation is going to be?
Absolutely. So the Lee and Sully subcommittee, first of all, we talked about the one Fairfax policy. We wanted to align the values of that and representing the community with the commemoration of Confederate names. We discussed that commemoration means celebrating a person or event, and that is contrasted with preserving history. And I want to be clear on the distinction here. The recommendation to change names is not erasing history. These names will remain in the historical record, but commemorating them, celebrating them, does not represent the values of the district, of the county. Commemoration essentially is bringing forward a dark chapter of our history. So therefore, the Confederate names attached to streets, highways, properties, precincts, and districts cannot be recommended to continue. Specifically, those names are Lee District, Sully District, Mosby, Ravensworth, Stewart, Van Dorn, Graham Greenway, Oakmar, Penderbrook, and Lee's Corner. We recommended those names be considered by the Board of Supervisors to be changed. With regard to Holland Hall, we also found that it's not associated with the Confederacy, and so we recommend that that name remain in place.
Does anyone have any questions from the RAC? Any RAC members have any questions for Brian?
I don't have a question. I'd like to have an add-on or an addendum to what Brian just said. With regards to Sully, I agree with our philosophy as far as keeping education, keeping the name Sully for the Sully Historic Site and educational purposes. But as far as the namesake for the district, I think it should be changed. That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Anyone else? It doesn't have to be a question. Just jump in if you have something on this topic, if you're a RAC member. Yeah, Janae, go ahead.
I was not in the discussions, obviously, but when you discussed Sully, did you talk about how it was the majority of the ownership was of Quakers? There was only one generation that were slaveholders. All the rest of them were Quakers.
Actually, it began as slaveholders, and it didn't go to Quakers until after the what is his name? Richard Bland Lee. His wife was a Quaker from Philadelphia, and that's when it started.
Started that change.
But before that, and even during that, there were, I'm looking at the number, over 100 women, men, women, and children that were trafficked and kidnapped and used on the Sully plantation.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing, do a preference canvas right now. And yeah.
Paul?
George, yeah.
Yeah, I hate to be a pain. Can we break it up one by one? The reason I'm asking is because I want to abstain from Ravensworth and Graham Greenway for personal reasons.
Yeah, so let me get the list here. Why don't I share my screen here so everyone sees exactly what I'm doing. Okay.
Well, this is if I understand you correctly, this is a preference poll.
Yes.
So there should be no reason why George's concerns could be noted.
Yeah.
Rather than have to go through all of these individually.
Yeah, that's a good point. George, if you're, I think we can just let's skip the precincts for now, and we'll just stick to the districts, so we can kind of solidify. I want to do the preference canvas so that I can give everybody the final, an opportunity to say, yes, we don't need to discuss this anymore. We can just get into the report writing phase where we're doing that kind of work. So that's the whole point of the preference canvas. If somebody, if you still have more to say, then we'll keep talking. But let's just do a preference canvas on Sully and Lee. And I'm going to find, let's see, we got back together 10 minutes ago. So that's I mean, okay, so I'm going to conduct another preference canvas with the question, should the RAC recommend renaming Lee and Sully districts? Again, that's should the RAC recommend renaming Lee and Sully districts? Preference canvas indicate support for that by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions?
Well, I want to do an abstention for Sully. I didn't realize you were going to put both of them together. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's an informal preference poll, so how about I reach in,
Okay.
Should the RAC recommend renaming, let's just go with Lee District.
Aye.
Do this one more time. Indicate support by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And okay, same drill. Should the RAC recommend renaming Sully District? Preference canvas only. Say aye if you support.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
We're ahead of schedule, so let's see if we can't get out of here a little early. So what needs to happen next is, of course, we're going to address the precincts at a later time, so we're not going to forget about those. The next stage for our work is the report. We need to take the written material that we saw tonight and put it into an organized fashion, make it consistent, readable, etc. I think it should get flushed out a little bit more too, with a little bit, references, things that we can point to. Want to make this a very concise but comprehensive argument that says this is why we're recommending, this or that. Obviously, Google Docs are the preferred method for that, but we have limitations on how we share that. So I'll work with the. I'll work with the leads on those documents. Put one together and then circulate that so that everyone can read it. And if you want to add something, we'll have time to add. If you want to take something out, if you want to elucidate a thought, we'll have plenty of time to do all the editing that everybody wants to do. I think we can cancel Thursday's meeting and just work on the document. unless anybody has any objections to that. For the members of the public that are still with us, that document will, as soon as I put it together, I'll send it to Nat, and he will make it available for everybody. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, just as a question, and I have not done this research, but it might be helpful if you could have a discussion with the electoral board to see whether or not any of the precincts that we are addressing are scheduled for a split.
Good question.
I don't know the answer.
The manager for elections, there's a couple of them, Ravi, R-A-V-I, I don't know anymore. He would be able to tell you.
Yeah, he joined during our
Yeah.
first rack process. Yeah, great suggestion, Sam. I think I still have his email. Okay, thanks, Richard. Really great idea. Okay, so from now on, we just have the precincts, which I said we'll dispense with, soon. We still have the March 1 date, but if we can speed things up and finish our work a little earlier, keeping in mind that we did invite the public to weigh in on Springfield on February 9th. I think we're on pretty sturdy ground right now. Does anyone have any new issues, any comments, anything that they want to share before I make a motion to adjourn? Janae, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to apologize to Tim Thompson. But you were thinking with the history of Springfield, I was talking, there was a mill that was there that was called the James Keene Mill, and that's where Old Keene Mill Road is from. But there was things done previous to that. And I'm going to go and research that a little bit more. It's kind of always fun to figure out more of what's going on down there. So anyway, thank you, Tim.
No problem, Tim.
Richard, is your hand still up, or do you have something new?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second from Richard. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? See you next Tuesday, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.